In this video, we're talking about video games that we wish we had held on to. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this, but most often the reason is usually because we did something stupid as a kid. And in a lot of cases, it was trading in our games to like GameStop or Babbage's or Funkoland or whatever it was called back then. EB Games is another one. And so, of course, those places don't offer much trade-in value. So looking back at some of those games we traded in now, and especially considering how much the value has probably gone up on some of those games, yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. In our defense, though, we were just kids then, and so for a lot of us, we had little to no money. So it was just the only way to get money for new games. Plus, we were, younger, so we didn't have that foresight to think, hey, this is something I'd want to play years and years down the road when I'm an adult. We just thought, oh, I'm a stupid kid, I want this new thing. Okay, trade this in for, a few bucks, and then get the new thing. And that's the thing, it was usually just a few bucks per game, so you had to trade in a whole ton of stuff to be able to cover the cost of a new game. I remember I traded in, it was like my entire Nintendo 64 collection. All these games were in their boxes with their manuals and everything. It was probably like 15 or 20 games or something, and that was enough to cover the cost of Resident Evil, for GameCube, which, don't get me wrong, this is an excellent game. I really like this. I could have made worse choices back then, but this costs like 10 bucks now. And if you looked at the value of that Nintendo 64 collection all in the boxes, man, it would have been hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But for some of you, I know that it's even worse than just trading your games in for minimal, store credit. For some of you, I know that your parents just flat out gave away or maybe sold them at a yard sale for, like next to nothing. I've heard about this. I'd like to think this is less common than trading your games in, because at least there, you're making the dumb decision yourself. It's not just your parents or whoever saying, yeah, get this crap out of here. I should point out, though, that I find it pretty ironic that now the tables have kind of turned. And what I mean by that is now we're the people going out there looking for these garage sales where parents are selling their children's games who maybe now they're older and grown up. Maybe they still want their games. We don't know. We don't really care. We're just trying to buy these games for cheap. And, I've never ran into a sale like that myself, but I'll be honest, I probably would buy them if I had the chance. Because here's the thing, what if those video games belong to somebody who doesn't care about video games anymore? They think they're stupid. Then screw them, right? We should be buying those games for cheap. So let's just always assume it's somebody like that every time we're buying games in a situation. Our little secret. But sometimes the games we've gotten rid of that we wish we hadn't, it didn't just happen when we were kids. For example, now as collectors, sometimes we want to consolidate, or, maybe a game's value is just too high for us to not sell it. You want that money, and so you think, well, I don't play this game that much, I'd like to have that money. And then what can happen is later on, you wish you had that game again, and now maybe the value's gone up. For example, this not necessarily a game that I regret selling, but let me just tell you what happened. So I had Snatcher for Sega CD, played it through, really enjoyed it, but I just felt like it wasn't a game I would ever play again. The menu system is just kind of like frustrating, and the thrill of being able to get through the game the first time and see what's going to happen next was enough to push me through it, and it was an enjoyable experience. But I'm like, man, this game's worth 400 bucks. I think I should sell it and take that money. Well, now the game is like $700 or something crazy, and so there's no way I can buy it again now. But sometimes, no matter how much money you have to replace certain copies of games, there's just nothing that will replace that original copy you owned as a kid. And I know some people regret that. They think, man, I wish I still had the original copy of this that I grew up with. And, that's a bummer. There's no way you're going to get it back. I mean, unless you know the person it went to when you got rid of it when you were younger, there's no way you're going to find it again. It's out who knows where. Unless you're somebody who would write your full first and last name on your games. I think I've actually seen a story where that happened to somebody. They found their game because they looked on the picture and they saw their full name written on the game. But then even if you found your game that way, you got a different problem, which is that you're going to gamer hell, because that's where they send people who write their names on their games. All kidding aside, I do find it funny how we can become so attached to specific pieces of plastic. It can't just be, the game itself. It has to be the exact cartridge or CD or whatever you owned as a kid. But I get it. I mean, the only game I kept from my childhood, and I've talked about this before, was the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on Nintendo 64, because my older sister bought it for me, and that was like super unusual because usually I only got games on holidays, Christmas or my birthday, from my parents, and she just bought me Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in the middle of the summer, right when it was really popular, and so I still have that game. There's also times in my life where I wish I had been collecting games and not, there were times in my life where I just didn't play video games at all because I was busy with college or whatever, but that's a whole nother video. Anyways, I know a lot of you probably have some really good stories and examples of games that you wish you had held on to that you no longer have anymore. So I would really love to hear some of the stories that you all have. And I specifically want to hear not just which game, but how you lost the game, or how you gave it away, or what happened to it, whatever. Actually, here's another good example. Sometimes, and I know all of us have been either on one side of this or the other at some point, maybe both sides at some point. And that's when you let someone borrow a game, or you borrow a game from someone, and then it just never gets returned to them, and then maybe the kid moves away, or you forget about it because you're kids or whatever. I'd also like to hear if that's happened to anybody. That's actually never, I don't think that has happened to me though. I said it's happened to everybody, but I don't think it's happened to me. It's been close to happening, and then I remember, way later I remembered, oh shoot, I got to give this game back, and then gave it back. But yeah. So leave those stories down below. This is a great video to comment on if you never have before, if you usually don't, or maybe if you do all the time. I always love to hear, I always read through all the comments. So yeah, leave your stories down below, and I will see ya in the next video.